guys, Brian here. So I wanted to give you a quick little generator tip today that really helped me out recently. You know, I had a problem with my generator not too far back, and it ended up to be a bad fuel pump. So my fuel pump kind of went out on me. What I wanted to share with you today, though, is how I figured out that my fuel pump was actually bad. And it's a really simple check that you can do. I'm not a mechanic, but you know, I was able to do it, and hopefully it'll help you out. And I'm also going to give you a couple of tips if you decide that your fuel pump's bad. If, say, this happens to you and you want to take on the task of changing out your fuel pump yourself on your generator, here's a few tips also that I'll offer that might help you out if you want to do that. So stick around. Okay, so, you know, here's what happened to me. You know, I was getting ready to take the RV out, and as I normally do, I kind of check all my systems and run my generator, and I make sure everything's working right. And the generator was kind of doing some weird stuff. So I noticed, you know, it's got a couple 100 hours on it, and it would run, so it would fire up. My generator would fire up. And it would run for about 20 minutes. And then I'd be inside the RV, checking everything out, then all of a sudden, brrr, generator would just shut down. I'd be like, huh. Wasn't sure what was going on. But the crazy thing is that I would wait another 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and I would try again, and it would fire back up again. And sure enough, within about 20 minutes after running, it was shut down. So I was a little perplexed as to what the heck is going on with my generator. So, you know, while it was running, the thing is that while it was running, you know, it ran really smoothly. So I figured, you know, the mechanics of it seemed to be, you know, running pretty normally. I immediately suspected that it was something to do with the fuel line, and really the only things in the fuel line, this is the fuel line coming in to the carburetor right here. The only thing that I suspected was it's either the fuel filter or it's the fuel pump. And I had to really check it out and run a test to just verify that that was the problem. And here's what I did. What we want to do is to see if there's actually fuel coming out of the fuel line and going in to the carburetor. Because if the carburetor is basically fuel starved, meaning there's no fuel coming in, no gas, then you know, the generator's not going to run and your generator is going to simply shut down. So here's a quick little tip. You might need a little pliers and a bucket. Okay, so here's a little test we want to do. We're going to remove the fuel line from the carburetor, and I've already loosened this up. Okay, now I want to take my bucket and put it underneath the fuel line here, and we're simply going to hold the starter on the generator and hold the button down, and we want to see a steady stream of gas coming out of the fuel line. So in this case, you know, my fuel pump and everything is working fine. I saw a steady stream of gas coming out. Now, if it wasn't working good, you wouldn't see any gas coming out, or you might see just a little bit of a trickle. So that is the test I wanted to show you. A little tip. If you're done, you can just kind of put that back on there. Okay, well, before you go running off thinking that your fuel pump or your fuel filter's bad, you want to make sure that your gas tank is over a quarter tank full. You know, your generator will not run if your fuel tank is below, if your fuel level is below a quarter tank. And it's just a precautionary feature that prevents you from running your tank dry. So if your generator automatically shuts down while you're running it, that could be a possible problem, that, you know, your fuel tank just got a little low. So, you know, once you rule that out, that, you know, you have a full tank or you have plenty of gas, it's just something else that's going on, then, you know, you might want to do this fuel pump, fuel filter test. So if you decide to do this yourself, you're going to have to first shut down all the power to your RV. So, you know, anytime you're working on the electrical system, which, you know, this is part of, you know, you're going to have to shut down all the power to your RV. So unplug your shore power, disconnect, and disconnect the negative lead from your battery bank as well, so that your batteries aren't providing power as well. So anytime you work on the electrical system, you got to make sure all the power is shut down. So first of all, you're going to need to get a new fuel pump. You know, I ordered mine on Amazon, you know, right here, you know, as a replacement. I also got a new fuel filter. And I went ahead and also bought, you know, a new air filter. You know, got it all off of Amazon. I'll put a link down below if you want to get one for yourself, if this is something you want to keep on hand. But as far as some tips for replacing your fuel pump itself, you might need, you know, a couple of basic tools, like a Torx bit. This is a T30 Torx socket, same one you would use if you're going to change your oil. One thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to disconnect the fuel line. So, you know, it's very possible that in my case, I had a full gas tank, so I'm not going to drain 55 gallons of gas in order to do this job. So what I did is I got a pair of vice grips and I just tightened it down just enough to pinch the fuel line so that no fuel is coming out. And I went behind the generator and I basically pinched the fuel line a little bit, made sure there was no fuel coming out, so that when I disconnected it from the back of the fuel filter, there's no fuel coming out, and I put a bucket under just in case. If you look inside this compartment here, this is pretty much where you're going to be working. You know, the fuel line itself runs down underneath. So we have this control unit here, we have this solenoid here, and you know, some electrical connections. Now the location of your fuel pump is behind here. So if I can get a little light in there, if you can see, it's got a white label on it. And back, it's kind of in an angle, and so that's your fuel pump down there, and your fuel filter connected to it, and it's pointing out kind of the back corner of the generator. Once all your power's out, it's basically a process of removing some of this stuff and getting it out of the way so you can access the fuel pump itself. Now, first thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to take your T30 Torx socket, and there's these two Torx screws here. Basically unscrew that, will disconnect the assembly here for this control unit, and then you can simply, you know, kind of maneuver it out and lift it out of the way. And then you're going to have to take your Torx bit also and get it in there to remove the solenoid. And there underneath there's a couple of grounding connections that you'll have to unscrew a couple things just to disconnect some wires, just to get things out of the way so you can access that area back behind, and unbolt, you know, disconnect your fuel pump and put a new one in. And then basically the process is reversed. You know, once you get it in, put everything back the way that it came out. And that's pretty much it. You know, what I also did is I replaced my fuel filter as well. Like I mentioned, I also put in a new air filter and put everything back in place. You know, I would say it's a pretty easy DIY kind of task to do. the most time-consuming part, I think, was just kind of, you know, getting a lot of this stuff out of the way and making sure it all went back the way that it went, that I took it out. So certainly a doable thing. Just, you know, if you're good with some basic tools and you just kind of take your time and do it right. Alrighty. Well, I hope this tip comes in handy for you. You know, it certainly is for me. You know, you don't know, you know, when stuff is just going to stop working. You know, you know, checking that fuel line trick just to see if the fuel's flowing is a, you know, quick way to know if things are working. At least, you know, you're getting gas. So, you know, also continue to do those checks on your generator before a trip, or maybe every month, whether you're using it or not, just to run it, and you'll identify problems like this before you actually hit the road and realize something doesn't work. But hope that helps, and hope you check out our other videos. You know, if this is your first time, you know, watching one of our videos, you know, check out the other videos we have on our channel, and maybe you'll subscribe and, you know, share some information of your own, and also check out our website, rvwtito.com, and there's other information out there about servicing your generator, changing your oil, things like that. So happy travels, guys, and happy RVing, and we'll see you next time.